Back in 1946, the men fighting in World War II had returned to Bend and life was getting back to normal. So, the Brooklyn Dodgers decided to come to Bend.
Oh, but not those Brooklyn Dodgers.
Not at all, not even close. The Dodgers that summer baseball were leading the league again. Even out here, as far from New York as you could possibly get, Brooklyn Dodgers was very exciting traditional baseball.
There was a new professional football league emerging, and the newly founded Brooklyn Dodgers football squad was headed to Portland for an exhibition game against the Chicago Rockets.
The choice of where the team would train came down to a pretty heated battle between several cities, but the Bend Chamber of Commerce rallied hard and won.
One of the main conditions of the Dodgers was when they looked at Old Bruin Field, which was a great football field and a big one for a town of about 9,000, there was no place to dress. Both Lava Bear teams and visiting high schools had to dress in what is now the Boys and Girls Club and bus out there for practices and games.
The Brooklyn Dodgers said, if you build it, we will come. So they did. And they did.
They flew over and to the Redmond Airport, but it was going to be an early evening arrival, maybe. So about 50 Bend merchants got in their cars and drove down to what was then the really old Redmond Airport and lined the cars up on the runway, turned their lights on so the plane could land.
Among the players that year was a young rising star named Glenn Dobbs who could run, throw, and even kick, a skill that made him absolutely invaluable to the Dodgers.
Well, maybe not completely invaluable.
But the next year, Los Angeles bought him away from Brooklyn for $100,000 and 3 additional players. And $100,000 was a lot of money in those days.
That'd be about $1.6 million in today's currency. So he could afford a house in Bend.
It paid off because at the first game in the LA Coliseum, the new Los Angeles Dons, they were called, 83,000 people came to that game.
And considering Bend at the time had around 9,000 people, the turnout in Central Oregon was proportionally impressive.
They figured about 2,200 at both games, which was a pretty good size for 9,000 population. There were about 100 coaches from all over the Northwest, including the University of Oregon coach and including Bill Bowerman, who was the coach at Medford, which was the big powerhouse team in Oregon high school football back then.
The governor of Oregon even made a trip across the mountains to put a new twist on an old tradition.
The governor threw out, the first pitch, baseball ritual. He threw out the football from the grandstand.
Now, years later, Jim would go on to become a sports writer at the Oregonian, and he'd like to play a little game at the local watering hole right after work.
And so I would play with guys at the bar and tell them that I remembered the time that I watched the Brooklyn Dodgers play in Bend in July and August. And of course they would, oh yeah, sure, what do you mean? That they're in the middle of a pennant race, don't give me that. No, I tell you, I saw them, would you want to put a beer on that?
Now, this was before the internet, so oftentimes people would call into their local newspaper to verify facts.
And of course I'd hand the phone to him and the sports department guy would tell him, yeah, they played 2 inter-squad games in Bend and then played here in Portland. And the guy would listen, he'd think, yeah, you're putting me on. No, that's the truth.
So a couple of hot months in the summer of 1946 lived on in a couple of cold beers for ace reporter and prankster Jim Kroll. For Central Oregon Daily News, I'm Scott Elmas.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on more videos from Central Oregon Daily News. And for more news from the high desert, just visit centraloregondaily.com.